What will you do if you learn that your nation has discovered oil reserves? You can be confident that it will have a favorable effect on your nation. But locating a supply of oil is not the topic at hand now. We are referring to anything as basic as a water supply. Finding a water resource can sound good, but for a nation with a water deficit, it is similar to finding an oil resource. The third most populous nation in the world, China also has the highest freshwater needs. However, China has a very limited water supply, which is an issue. China was developing methods for producing fresh water when a miracle happened. Under a $30 billion man-made island, there lies a water resource. China undoubtedly makes life difficult for its rivals. In just a few years, it has grown and broken world records. China has had unmatched success, growing from being the best infrastructure market in the world to a significant trader. But when development quickens, some of its drawbacks also emerged. For instance, China uses more water than any other nation on Earth. However, as water use continues to rise, China's water supplies are becoming more scarce. They cannot satisfy the demand. China controls 6% of the world's water resources in total. Additionally, their volume is less than 2.8 trillion cubic meters. Almost every province of China is facing water scarcity to some extent, even though it has 20% of the world's total population. While water scarcity is extremely high in some provinces. Before we go on, subscribe to Chi News to watch about the most shocking and amazing world projects. You won't regret it. Ready? Let's begin. But why is China running out of water exactly? The water distribution system in China is where the issue first arises. China has 2/3 of its people and most of its agricultural land in the north, yet the majority of its water resources are located in the south. As a result, the majority of China's water is distributed to less populous areas, and the distribution system is difficult to alter. Rivers in southern China provide 80% of the water. As a result, this information can be utilized to determine where water is consumed the most. Only 21% of the water is used for home needs, and only 69% of the water is used for industrial uses. Only 6% of people reside in areas with access to water resources. The other half is on the opposite side, far from any water sources. Due to the lack of water, it is highly expensive to carry this water to the locations where it is most required. Each year, China loses $100 billion. And on top of that, China has high levels of pollution. This renders the majority of its water unusable. In China, more than 80% of the groundwater is contaminated. The Chinese government is working to improve the country's historically expensive water quality. China is spending more than $60 billion just to transfer water to dry places. But this project will end in 2050, which is nowhere near. So it is not possible to live without water for years. China needs an alternative. Even though China has some plans to deal with water scarcity, most are either very costly or very late. Now you know why finding fresh water resources in China is like finding oil resources. It's a matter of life and death, and magically, China found water resources under their artificial island. This was the only major problem China faced, and now it's also solved. Before coming to how they found water resources under an artificial island, let's first talk about the island. Why did they make this fiery cross island in the first place? This island is home to a Chinese military base. It was built in the South China Sea. It was already famous for having many natural resources. It had natural gas, oils, and 10% of Earth's fisheries. China spends 30 billion yen to make this artificial island. But having all the rich resources in the sea, China has found fresh water. Is this the reason why China make fiery cross island? Definitely not. It is not even possible to guess that water resources can exist in seawater. You must be thinking, how is it possible to get fresh water out of seawater? Well, thanks to the freshwater lens, we need to know science to understand what a freshwater lens is. So here you go. A freshwater lens is a convex-shaped layer of water that floats above seawater. It occurs in a few places, and China is definitely the lucky one. This convex layer of water comes from groundwater. The amount of water is affected by atmospheric precipitation, or in simple words, rain. This process can be defined by its steps. The first step is desalination, which is the process of removing water from the sea. The second step is stabilization, and the third step is a deposit. So first, water gets removed from the freshwater lens. Then the quantity is balanced out by the rainwater that deposits underground. The first lens stays there forever, if the water consumption stays equal to the rain. And this region where the island exists is rainy. The rainfall is rich in this place, as is the tropical, marine monsoon climate. The good news is that scientists believe this underwater resource is expanding by 1 meter each year, so there is nowhere this freshwater resource is going to end. This resource can not only support the military on the island, but it will also be able to deal with the water scarcity China is facing after China announced this water resource. It attracted many countries' attention. No country completely owns the South China Sea. In fact, 5 countries have a share in it, but none other than China has found this water resource. Now, the only thing China needs to do is transfer this water across China. This water resource is enough to meet the country's needs. China was the only most populated country that was facing such a water scarcity issue. But after this discovery, it seems like its problems are solved. The 30 billion yen worth of islands solve limitless problems. China is working on the process of getting this water out without polluting it. So this water resource is enough for them until China finds a way to change its water distribution network. Following China's discovery of this water resource, other research is being conducted on artificial islands. After this discovery, it is not possible for political debate not to occur in the past when China was making this island. Many countries did not like it. A lot of debate on this island kept on going, and now, after finding this water resource, the world's attention is again on China. Many countries who do not want China to progress might also want to find a water resource under an artificial island. But nothing of that sort has happened yet. China has always been very lucky. Somehow it manages to get the best out of everything. Do you think the US would also like to find a water resource under an artificial island just to compete with China? After finding this resource, do you think China has passed all obstacles in its way? Comment below in the comment section. Will such wonders as this keep happening? And what else do you expect from China in a few years? Thanks for watching. Click on these video to watch about another amazing project you didn't know about.